Ya halo guys, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hari ini saya berada di Asia University. Asia University ini terletak di kota Taichung, ya, tepatnya di Ufong. Jadi kalau naik bis dari stasiun Taichung, naik bis 201 bisa, 108 juga bisa ya. Kalau 201 di pemberhentian terakhir di dekat sini aja. Bisa, ini suasananya cerah sekali. Seperti apa keadaan di sana kita lihat ya. Jadi kita masuk ke dalam. Di sini banyak orang Indonesia yang sekolah di sini. Orang Indonesia, orang India, banyak yang di sini. Ini bangunannya. Seperti apa di sana? Yuk kita jalan.
ルミさんとナナミさん、こんにちは。我卒業おめでとうございます。我是文学院的院长陈玉妮，很高兴你们已经毕业了。希望未来你们有时间可以回来成大走一走。听说ナナミさん要回来成大，很欢迎。我们找个时间再去吃台南的美食。谢谢。
The moderator is Professor Basri. Please welcome Professor Basri. 各位贵宾，主持人是巴西教授。我们掌声欢迎巴西教授。
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank all for your presence here, and as usual, I will introduce you two speakers. Let me begin with my on my right hand. Tang Sifa Techa. Hopefully, pronunciation is correct. Okay. So. He is now assistant professor in the University of Thammasat University, and his field is on political theory and on Thai-Burmese borderland migrations, and he has got PhD in political science in the University of Hawaii at Manoa USA. What year was that? 2003. Okay. So he will get a break on this paper. It is in the in proceeding on page 29. A topic on a journey of animus, Christianized Karens, and recollection of Karen Burman and a Muslim. And right is Dr. Calampas Rolando. Currently is an associate professor at the College Scottish Secretary of Asian Center, University of the Philippines. And his research field is on West Asian diaspora, social capital, development and migration, and security. He got his postgraduate degree in Masters in Asian Studies, PhD Development Studies in Canada on Asian Studies and Political Science. UP Ileman, Jala Sele University. So, and his paper will be, let me check. This is the guy. Anyway, it's okay. We will talk on Sama Bajau. Yes, Sama Bajau. It's very interesting. This is, I think, so we are given 20 minutes for each photo presentation, and then Q&A, and then Wolf, I think, told that I think we can wrap up within 1 hour, and by question time will be, I think, maybe 5-10 minutes. So let us hear from Professor Stefan Beschekos.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you don't mind that I stand up. Can we? Yes, thank you. So, I was asked by Frank, and thank you very much for the organizer for having me here. My topic generally is not about religion, but I have been working on forced migration, on death and atrocity issue. So, I went back and looked at my work that I've been working on this issue about how the current people, indigenous people along the Taiwanese borderland were Christianized. So basically this topic is about the current people and the Burmans. What I'm trying to do in this paper is that trace their becomingness. In other words, that changing of identity of the current in relation to the Burmans. So how do I do that? I trace the current from being a unified indigenous ethnic group to become a nation. So what I try to do here is two things. How is it through Christianization that many current indigenous people were constructed as discursive currents? For those of us who are aware of this or who don't forget this, I'm coming from a post-structuralist perspective, and let me make sure from the beginning that I've been trained to look at the world that it is not the world that gives us the language we speak, it is the language we speak here, the world we live. So in that sense, I'm coming from another perspective. So when I'm talking about the current, I treat them as discursive current, not as a current, as concrete identity that never changes. How is it that they have been represented? Okay. So they were transforming from people with our book to become people of the book. So that's the first thing that we try to narrate. The second one is that, how is it that by being people of the book, intensify the animosity between the currents and the Burmans? And at that time, and for the most part of the time, the Burmans were the hegemony and the currents were the subaltern. However, many currents became much less subaltern because of Christianization. And in many ways, become more hegemonic because of British colonialization. Okay, so these are the two forms of narratives that I'm trying to trace in this article. And so toward the end, you will see, and I will highlight more. I'm looking at the intertwining relationship between nationhood, language, and the political. And conceptually, what am I studying? I study memory. I study religion and I study ethnicity. When I was asked by Frank, and this article is very long, it's about 1/5 of a manuscript that I'm working. So I'm not gonna bore you with all the detail. Okay. What I'm trying to do in this book, in this article, is follow two philosophers. One is Walter Benjamin, a German philosopher, by using his way of historiography. And then Jacques Rancière, French notion of subjectification. So I follow them there. In the process, this article blurs genre of various disciplines, history, anthropology, and critical theory. And I'm situated myself in that intersection of the three disciplines. Okay. This is the outline of the article. As I mentioned, I'm not going to bore you with all the detail. I just want to spend for the benefit of time, go right to discuss the main thrust of the argument of this article, which is the interrelationship between nationhood, language, and the political. Because the article is there, so I like to do this as a way of inviting some of us to come and see whether the article makes sense from your perspective. Let me start like this. In 1995, Walter D. Nyoro wrote a very important book called The Darker Side of the Renaissance. This is how he put it. When people bring civilization to to so-called barbarians. It means different things. The process of bringing civilization means different things depending on from what position you are speaking. In other words, from different locus of enunciation. Okay, so in the process, it enables each person who speaks to change the system of value or maintain the system of value. Hence, when the colonizer bring their own notion of civilization to the so-called barbarian, it changed not only themselves, but it also changed the people that they try to colonize. Now, so this one should be a commonplace to all of us, that for missionaries, no matter where they are in the so-called New World, or they are in the Burman Kingdom, or Burma, or Angwa, when you lack letters, it means you lack civilization. That's pretty much the commonplace in the eyes of the colonizer toward the so-called barbarian. Now, so what it means by being civilized? Being civilized means that you have to have a written language, because written inscription has the power to tame the voice. Voice can be unruly. To preserve memories, without which our memories get faded. Because we all know there's a difference between memory and history. Only that which can be written becomes history. So in that sense, written inscription preserves the memories. And written inscription advance the community's socio-cultural processes. So that's why being civilized means you have to have a written language. And that's the power of written language. Now, what does written language do, or what does it do afterwards? It unifies people. Okay? Spoken language cannot unify people as much, as well, as powerful as the written language. And because of the grammar of written language, for instance, written language can systematize, can control, and can unify different voices. And many of those voices are wild voices. Think about indigenous people, and Taiwan has quite a number of indigenous people. Think about if indigenous people don't have written language, their voices become wild. Once when they have written language, and written language pretty much have grammar, what does grammar do? Systematize, control, and it unifies a variety of voices. Now, once when people are unified, people become a people. Burma, Myanmar, according to the government, have more than 135 languages. Surely compared to Indonesia, cannot be compared. But in mainland Southeast Asia is the richest culturally. So there are so many voices. But once when you are unified, peoples, I'm trying to pronounce like John Lennon, the peoples. Peoples become like a people and a nation. Hence, every country, every nation dream to have a unified language. Now, so these are the reasons that if we think about it, enable us to think clearer the nexus between these three notions. It's the nexus or intertwining relations of written language, power, and colonization. And therefore, it is justifiable from the perspective, from the locus of enunciation of missionary, that those who have language, hence have written language, have power and can colonize. Hence, they can dominate. People with language can dominate and rule the people from the oral civilization. Now, in other words, we see a connection between languages, but have to be written languages again. Connection between languages, peoples, and knowledges. Okay. However, this has to be clear. This relationship between languages, peoples, and knowledges have to be understood in terms of hierarchy. We are not equal. And hierarchy in the sense of chronological. You can think of Charles Darwin. When he went to Terra del Fuego, he met the Fugans, right? And he said, oh, look at the Fugans. Their body are greasy. Okay, they use 300 years old technology. They sleep on sand and they eat berries. So, they must not be able to think, they cannot analyze, they cannot compare. So, Darwin located them at the lowest of human shape. Or you can think of getting closer to us, Franz Fanon in his very famous piece, The Fact of Blackness, when he tried to be sarcastic toward the white, and he wrote that, "Hey Negro, you come too late, much too late. There will always be the wide world between you and us." In that sense, when you understand the relationship between languages, people, and knowledges, you must not forget that there is always hierarchy. Some people are always higher and come before others. This kind of relationship in the eyes of the colonizer don't open for co-eval. Co-eval is a language that Fernand Braudel used. Okay. In other words, in the eyes of colonizer, they don't consider people who can exist at the same period of time, at the same level of civilization. Some people are just higher than others. Now, from the Christian perspective, before they met the current had voices, but they need letters. Okay? The civilized current, once got civilized, became humans only when they became a people of the book and read books. In the article, I discussed in detail because the current before being baptized were considered by the government as no better than cattle. So in the eyes of the colonizer, they could only become humans when they became a people of the book, the Bible. Now, what did Christianity do to the currents? To the current before they were colonized, to the currents when they were wild souls. Christianity disciplined those wild souls. What did letters, written script do? What did letters and the grammar do? It structured language, we know that. And it shaped the currents into. You can even say that it controlled the currents into. That's what language does, right? When I was in Hawaii, I did my master's in Chinese philosophy with Professor James, who is considered to be one of the top 5 Chinese philosophers written in English language. He translated many classical, including Sun Tzu, The Art of War. He told us that according to sinologies, what the Western did to Chinese language is put grammar into it. Before the arrival of the Western people to the Chinese world, when you study Chinese language, you did not have to go by grammar, right? You just try to familiarize ourselves. Thank you. So in that sense, letters of grammar not only shape but is control. Now, for example, we know that many indigenous people, and current included, they were enemies, right? And enemies, well, they have different understanding. What happened is that they have their own cosmologies. They have their own way of thinking about their relationship with the nature or biotic community. But if you are still enemies, you no longer have a place in the thinking of Christianizing discourses. In other words, it cannot be, because in animism, things can be tangible and intangible at the same time, right? You have spirit, and spirit can turn into matter like that. But that cannot exist in Christianizing discourse. It just cannot. However, being Christianized, one could say that it means the currents were controlled by the colonizer. But we cannot stop that. We have to try to understand from other perspective, and this is where philosophers and theorists help me. Being Christianized for the current need not be disadvantageous. Hence, what happened here is that there's a doubleness. On the one hand, being Christianized and colonized, that's what happened to the current, as well as many people in the so-called New World and the non-Western world. They were Christianized, they were colonized. However, for the current, they were able to exploit Christianization and colonization to secure an equality with the Burmans. In other words, before the arrival of the Western, they were inferior. Once Christianized, became people of letters, and being colonized, then their status become better. They have their own language. I lay down in detail in the article. And before that, the Koreans, according to many narratives, they would not fight if they were bullied. They would, tread away. They would flee away from city to rural, from rural to forest, and forest up to the mountain. Hence, people would not see them. But once Christianized and colonized, they became perceptible. They became audible. They became visible. Now, let's make sure when I'm talking about the name, that again, discursive currents, okay? And I said from the beginning, I don't look at ethnic identity as a group of people who never change. It depends on how we talk about each group of the people. So the term current have two kinds of signification. We have to make distinction between pre-baptized currents and then post-baptized currents. Pre-baptized current, the current were objectified in the way one would make an argument. They were made like objects of power of the colonizer. Okay, they were seen as people of nature and wildness before they were baptized. But after baptized, they become persons who can stand firm and affirm their currentness, which is subjectivizing themselves as current, but not before. Okay, they become people, okay, of convention and discipline, which had not been before. Now, so the pre-baptized were haunted by violence that they had been bullied. Okay, but the latter, the post-baptized, full of hope of the future, and again in my article I articulate very clearly that they could stand toe-to-toe with the Burman hegemony. Now, my turn is political theory and philosophy. If I put this kind of context in 4 minutes, thank you very much. If I put this in the context of Greek public sphere, we could say that the Koreans and many other indigenous people's life all over the world, no matter not only in Kingdom of Angwa or in Burma, okay, they don't have any stage, any theater, any political arena that they can voice, they can make voice and let people know that they have been bullied. More often than not, their voice has not been heard. Now, so in this sense, when RK means hegemony, when the Koreans were recognized by the Burmans, they want to be. If you want to be recognized, you want to be visible and audible. So another Italian philosopher, which is very important to my work throughout since the year 2000, is that Agamben wrote at one point that a thing is a subject because of a fact of being in language. Only in language can you become a subject. If you are not in written language, you are not recognized as a subjectivity. Now, what does that mean? To be a Thai, I have to be a Thai who are literate, for example. Now, but then again, I could also counter-argue with Georgi or Agamben that not every kind of language works. Because, this is another philosopher, I'm sorry, quite a few names. French philosopher Jacques Rancière. There's a tension between logos and phoneme. Okay, this we have to go back to Aristotle Politics, Book 1, line 1253a 7 to 18. It is one of the most important passages of political theory of the Western world. In that passage, Aristotle said that what makes human voice different from other animal voices is that human voice can distinguish between what is advantage and disadvantage, and what is just and unjust. Because our voice turns us from phoneme to become logos. So in that sense, following Jacques Rancière, there's a tension between logos and phoneme. Okay. Now, what does it mean? It means that language enables us to be perceptible. Only language, as I mentioned, enables us to confirm who we are. Okay. Now, therefore, when we are humans of language, and the current people once become human of language, they can turn their voices into speeches, turn that phoneme into logos. No matter what kind of current, store, go, will current. Okay. If they only rely upon that spoken language, that will not work. They need written language. Okay, so in that sense, the arrival of the colonialist and missionary came as a package. It came with religion, it came with written script, and it enabled the current to de-hegemonize the Burman. Now, we know that before Burma became independent, it was known as Kingdom of Angkor, later on British Burma, and later on the Burmese nation state. Okay, so you see, as I mentioned, that many indigenous people, the current included, were treated badly. Hence, you see that how is it that they can make themselves perceptible? Okay, now we have to go further, and I think my time is almost up, right? Let me try to take you further. In fact, what I'm trying to do in this article is that I don't follow, number one, typical characterization of indigenous people, ethnic people, as a concrete people that never change, number one. Number two, I'm looking at their location in history and see ways in which colonization need not be about exploitation. And number three, in writing this article, I'm writing a history for the current. Okay, it's a kind of history that usually would not have a place for these people because they did not exist. Okay, and on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much also to Dr. Desha, and thank you very much for the timekeeper. Anyway, I think it's good that we can proceed with the Q&A, and I think we'll reduce the topic. We have, of course, we have only 10 minutes for Q&A. If there's any question, please.
Actually, it's very interesting what the president presented. Karen, because I remember Karen had my voice, I think it's right. I was a teacher, you know. So the Karen, I'm sure that people are having the long neck, isn't it? The long neck.
That would be another group of Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So happen, I look at from a literate to literate.
Yes.
That's a blue scale, you know, for people without books and literate and illiterate.
Yes.
So, bring down to the currents, isn't it? Okay. Until now, I just want to know the latest. How did the Myanmar governments look at these people and the way they treat the Rohingyas? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I will look at this angle.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that's the question.
Well, so this is the land that have a lot of history of atrocities, right? So it's not only the Koreans who were badly treated, but as researchers, when we study, we have to pick, right? We cannot study every group of people. So as of now, 2018, we have a so-called democratic government led by Aung San Suu Kyi, right? However, traces of authoritarianism and militarization is still there. In other words, Aung San Suu Kyi has not been successful. Hence, you know, Rohingya is one very glaring, very tragic example of ways in which the Burmese nation state have treated badly of, you know, ethnic people, the Rohingya included. So as for the Koreans, because of this process that I've been trying to tell, you know, because of being people of leather, they could stand toe to toe. However, until when the British left, they were bullied again. Okay, and that's why in 1949 they announced what they call revolution, and they took up arms until recently. Okay, so the Korean is one among quite a few ethnic nationalities that then Burma became independent in 1948, and 1949 the Korean announced revolution, and other ethnic nationalities followed suit. So the situation at this point is not, even though we have semi-democratic government. But thank you for the question.
Sure. Okay, I have a lot of questions to ask.
Please, we can.
Yeah, any more questions, please?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much. In conclusion, you said that you are writing history, correct? Right. Well, I want to ask, do the people of the book of current write history for themselves?
Yes. No. They do write history for themselves.
Then what's the difference between your written works and
Thank you so much, Kenchen, for asking that question, because this is where I did not go into. There's a difference because I'm following Walter Benjamin, and I have it in my article. Benjamin notion of historiography does look at history as continuous and homogeneous. In other words, the way we talk about Benjaminian historiography is that a history of a people or a nation need not be continuous. But the way the current people talking about their own history, it is continuous. For example, many people said that Chinese civilization is perhaps the only civilization that never get broken, right? Yes, but then again, when we look at it, at the end of one civilization, at the beginning of one dynasty, and the beginning of the next one, they need not be friends. They were fighting, right? So, by and large, when we look at history, we tend to look at history as continuous and homogeneous, when in fact, history have more than one memories. But the way every history book of every dynasty or nation or country want to have only one grand narrative, one main narrative. So in that sense, my writing of history is different in that sense. And that's why I end this article by quoting another guy, an Indian guy, Nanaji, that when you write a history for marginal people, it becomes stuttering, like when we talk, stutter people. So the difference, and this is very important, and thank you for asking, is that my writing of history is different from even the Korean writing of history. You can see in my footnote that I follow them, and they tell, let's see, on page 38, page 36 in the footnote, the way they write history. It's a continuous, go back to 1,000 years. From my philosophical and political point of view, I would not be able to write history that way. You seem to have something in mind. Would you like to say more? That's how I answer your question. Thank you so much.
Okay. Maybe I'll have one more question. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I have two simple questions. Do you think the same, the paradigm could play the same role to other ethnicity as well?
Could you say again? Sorry.
I mean that you mean the Christianity play the role for make Karens to know they are kind of Karens, right?
Yeah.
But do you think the same situation will in other ethnic groups as well? Because in that area there are so many ethnic groups. And another question is that in Karen, I think there are some of them are Buddhists, and how do you think about those people?
Thank you so much for important questions. Number one, I'm a political theorist, and I'm not an ethnologist. Okay? I do anthropology, but I'm not formally trained as an anthropologist. So your question is important, the first one, but I think it's beyond my knowledge. I would not want to generalize in other words. Okay, I think each own ethnic nationality has their own journey. Just because it worked well for the Koreans didn't mean it could work well for others. However, one thing I could say for sure is that many people in this room might know that, or might remember that the Korean story is one of very few success stories of American baptism. Okay, so in that sense, it could be some kind of exceptional there. And number two, could you review the question number two again, please? Sorry.
I mean for the Buddhist.
Okay, yes. This is interesting because the Buddhist current did not subjectify themselves, did not affirm themselves as being current. Okay, and the Buddhist current is the Bo current. And you know what? The majority of the current who subjectify themselves are the scholars. And when the missionary reduced the written script for the scroll, they used Burman script. So this becomes another sense of anxiety for the current. And the missionary said, well, we didn't have much time. So the Buddhist current script followed the scroll current. Okay, so I don't study the Bo current, but to the little of my knowledge on the Bo current, I don't see them subjectifying themselves the way the Scott current, meaning Christian currents, did in the past.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gra, for your very informative preparation and your answers. And just for your thought, one aspect I think when Mr. Missionary came, I think how much of the aspect of contextualization, for the preserving of the culture, indigenous culture, and culture. This is a way to talk. Now I think we'll have to invite you. The next speaker is Rolando Talabas. His topic will be Islam, Sama Bajau in Christian Metro Manila, negotiating religion in migration. And you can refer to this in your book, page 51, in the proceeding, page 51. So I hand over to you, Mr. Rolando.
Thank you and good morning. I would like to talk about the so-called Sama Bajau, who are predominantly Muslim but consider themselves Islam. So when you ask the so-called Bajau, he or she would rather call himself or herself as Islam, not Muslim, typically. But some do call themselves Muslim. In the past so many years, the thousands of these people, and these people I'll describe very briefly later, to other parts of the country. They have traveled usually by boat, and at a certain time by military airplane from southern Philippines to the northern island. And from there, disperse themselves in the different cities where they could be hosted. They come from the Sulu, Tawi area, which are the southernmost archipelagos. These are groups of smaller islands. Southern Philippines, bordering Malaysia and Indonesia. They call themselves with various names. There only people from Manila call them Bajau. Depending on their smaller affiliation, they call themselves Sama Bangingi, Sama Dilaut, and Sama something. But generally, Sama is more a linguistic grouping. So what we call Sama Bajau, and this is what I refer to in this presentation, is basically the group of basically linguistically linked migrants in Metro Manila. And perhaps for the last 30, 40 years, they have continuously moved on to the city. Okay. I'd like to introduce my topic very briefly and then pose the question that I had intended to answer and the argument, and describe the method and some limitations that went into this. And present some findings and then conclude. Okay, in case you don't know the Bajau, this is how they're pictured in the internet. There's so many pictures of them, either swimming very differently, okay, deep down in the nice waters of southern Philippines, like that, children playing. But some of them very much poor, trying to eke out very low income living livelihood in the city, such that they are distrusted or disliked for their mendicancy, for their begging, such that local governments have actually imposed penalties for their mendicancy, for their begging. Chiefly in Mindanao and also in some cities of metropolitan Manila. This is not the first time that I deal with the Sama Bajau. Some years ago, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, a government agency looking after a more vulnerable population of the Philippines, asked me to lead a study on the Bajau. I did not know much about it. I should confess my ignorance. Then what I did was to look at the literature already produced. There's a vast amount of literature, and this includes books and journals and monographs and articles. I will not deal with them much anymore, but in relation to the present topic, I'd like to cite as examples the part played by religion in the people in migration. So how religion is negotiated by the people trying to settle themselves, especially in the national urban capital. Okay, typically what you find are studies that have to do with international migration. But no matter, there have been so many and more current attempts to see how religion religious difference is treated by host governments, especially what's happening now in Europe, in some parts of Asia, as Muslims and other religionists try to enter a different country, or often on account of security considerations, they are banned. So either you're Arab, your name is Arab sounding, or you're Arab looking. I don't know how these are really, but some countries have made this as indicators of acceptance or rejection in their case. So, but anyway, what does religion have to do with migration? There's certain studies that can be benefits from having so-called spiritual capital. If people bind themselves together, they are a common religion, then there's tendency, there is a likelihood that they are able to build a social network for their own advantage or benefit. But how does that happen? Could religion really be improved? If a group of people are less religious in their original place, would religion be or religious practice increase when they are in a different setting, especially in a much different setting, when they are somewhat treated differently? So the idea of relocalization, would this be much better in private or in congregational worship? One study, especially in the Philippines, in Davao City, the Sama Bajau was treated by a Japanese scholar, Wako Oyama, quite continuously. And she basically said, this is rather strange, by the way. The Sama Bajau in Davao City, which is in Mindanao, have tried to manipulate their own images and identities. They present themselves less and less Bajau. So they are able to connect more with people who buy their stuff. But elsewhere in the country, where the Bajau, for example, and since they are engaged in fishing, when their cash is sold in the market, it's often refused because the Bajau are said to be filthy and their products not acceptable in the market. But in Davao, as Aoyama has concluded, this Sama Bajau have always tried to improve on their conditions by a kind of self-denial, if you can use the term. Okay, for this, and I confess this is a small study, done quite hurriedly and with certain limitations. My own question for this is whether the migrants, the Bajau, of the same about religion are able to establish closer relationships with a predominantly different religious community. And I argue from here, driving basically from what I have discovered from that commission study, the negotiated position of religious application in the process of migration may help us, those who are concerned with the Bajaus, understand how the other community interventions may be able to become important indicators of their own social inclusion. how did I do this? I'm very familiar with the area in Manila, and this is what we call the Dakota area. It's in the tourist hub of Metro Manila, the Ermita district, and it's their residence is bounded by streets, no? The main area. I did distribute about 100 questionnaires, previously pre-tested, but only 71 were able to be accomplished. And I did some key informant interviews. I described the area, which is called Barangay 704. Barangay means village, and it's defined in my paper. What this looks like. The 71 people who responded to the questionnaires are described as follows. Their mean age is about 38, with ranges from 16 to 75. 60 are female and only 11 are male. This is one limitation of the study. There's a big gender bias, and this could be explained because most of the time, at the time that the survey was conducted, the men were out trying to earn a living elsewhere, and only the women were established at home. They're all migrants, almost all migrants. 55 were born in the western Mindanao area, Zamboanga, chiefly in Zamboanga cities, which we listed for an earlier study before. Others were born in Manila, and I recall very distinctly one was born in Sabah. 55 were married, 8 were not, 2 were divorced or separated, and 2 were widowers or widows. As to education, they had elementary education, some high school, and some college, and 13 did not indicate whatever. In terms of their length of residence in the area, the longest stay there, I think, had been there for more than 20 years. Most of them have been there for the last 16 years, with a median length at 20 years. So I'm trying to understand if people who have lived longer in the area and of distinct religion would be able to meet the requirements of acceptance of the community. Okay, I present some highlights from this study, and these are as follows. The part played by gender of this Samabaja group in the different life dimensions, such as marriage or prayer rights, etc. The household and their economic lives, how they maintain their livelihood, how they keep to the basic household chores, and if being married or not, or their civil status really matter in their relationships with the others, and a kind of afterthought if technology will contribute to their establishment of relationships with the others. Okay, so most of the presentations of the data were done in the so-called cross tabulations. As you will see, since most of the respondents of the survey were women, you can find this. Oops. All right. This basically female-related aspects of life answered only by mainly by women. So such as pregnancy, they discuss this with non-Samabaja or not. So of course, I think the report says it doesn't really matter much, no? If the Samabaja was talking to another, a neighbor who is not Muslim. As to giving birth, yeah, females said, more females said yes, and matters about marriage, getting married, courtship, etc., would be also exclusively here, almost exclusively handled by among female Samabaja. Now, as to their civil status, marriage should be predominantly exclusive to the Samabaja respondents, and only very few would consider discussing this with Samabaja. I missed this showing you how their place looks like. They live in this very narrow alleys in Metro Manila. You could almost reach the door of the neighbor by just spreading your arms. Okay, so neighborhood is so dense. Okay, such that most of the household chores are also done the same stretch of narrow alleys. Just the same, they were able to keep to their own religious practice, but exclusively mainly to the male, like right now, for their private prayers. Okay, I tried to see if education would matter, because some people believe that the higher, the more educated you are, there is more tolerance on your part. So you will deal with the others regardless of the religion. But since a great majority of our respondents in this survey had less education than most people in Metro Manila, prayers would be exclusively discussed by the Samabaja, especially the males. Their private prayers, if at all, and congregational prayers also limited basically to themselves. Economic and household items. There is a great discussion of interactive community life. I detailed this in the paper. Let's discuss this much anymore. But since most household duties like child minding or cleaning the frontage of their houses, cooking, child rearing, and house repairs, these are shared typically with non-neighbors, women talking with other women, regardless of their religion. Now, education is provided, especially at the basic levels, but there is also a so-called alternative system where some are able to join non-Muslims in their schools up to so-called grade 12. How much more? 1 minute, sorry. I'll rush to the rest. Okay, and as you see, I have described this in the paper where they live and how they present themselves. Well, I was surprised to learn because I asked why they always stay outside of their homes. It's very hot. There is no cooling system. There's no electric fan. It's because people say they use so-called jumpers, illegal electrical connections They cannot use this at daytime. They only use this at nighttime. This is a very famous Sama Bajau woman, and I present her case. She's a good friend, Narsing, and this is in connection with marriage. Narsing, Sama Bajau, Muslim, is happily married to a Christian, and she said in our language, and translated in English, that she's very thankful that her husband is a Christian because that takes care of the problem of abandonment. So I would hazard a guess that Sama Bajau men typically leave their wives because they keep on moving around the city and even in the neighborhood. Okay. I present this, and you can read this more in the paper, and give me just a few seconds to conclude. I find it very important to see the role played by the social media, the use of cell phones, because I asked them to give me a sense of a number of how many non-Muslim contacts they have in their phone books, and these are their answers. They also do a lot of social media connections. And this goes in my conclusion. And I say, people better known for their keeping to their own at sea or ashore, rather than commit friction or tension with their hosts. Their physical nearness to the non-Muslim, non-Sama Bajau, and some of their attributes and experiences, together with the use of social media and technology, this may all strengthen their new social ties that may go a long way in their social inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for the presentation. We have about 8 minutes more to go for our Q&A. And I would like to invite you for if any questions, please.
Yes. Because I like to ask some questions. Interesting.
She's the professor. Yeah, my wife.
Yeah.
I'm not a presenter, but I like to listen, I like to share, that kind of thing. But you did mention a Bajau. Is there any differences with the Bajau in Sabah? Because in Sabah, Malaysia, we have Bajau. But called Bajau also. They come from, they migrated from Sulu Islands, next to the, that's near the country. So is there any differences or similarities?
No, I have visited the area typically in Sempurna, in Lahadatu, in Tawau, and the Sama Bajau, they all move around this area, south of the Philippines and north of Borneo, much into Malaysia and Indonesia, and who knows where else. They are the same. As I said, I found one woman who was herself born in Sabah.
Another thing, from the pictures you show, there's a lot of liquors. Are they Muslim? There are liquor bottles there.
And that's one question I asked. If they join their neighbors, because their neighbors are also Christians, and once in a while, if they get some money, they spend a few hours having some of these drinks. Yes, some of them did not deny that they joined them. And so one elderly Bajau would say, would tell me, the some Bajau are not really known to be very devout, strictly religious. So these haram items are also consumed. But elsewhere I found some of Bajau also eating pork.
Thank you.
Any more questions, please?
Actually, I have a lot of questions. Okay.
Please, in the back.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My question is that, according to my knowledge, Islam is a religion or a way of life. How can Sama Bajau call themselves as Islam instead of Muslim? Do that mean that their way of life is the good and correct way of life? Thank you very much.
This is what I have now. I mean, I also find it strange that a good number of them call themselves Islam. So I always ask, what's your religion? What are you? So that's rather disrespectful, but I want to get straight answers. So they say, we are Islam, we are not Muslim. A Bajau, and this is to the different attitude of the 12 other Muslim groups in the Philippines. They do not like the Bajau because, as they said, especially the Tausuks. The Tausuks reserve a special name for the Bajau. I think Lua, something, the one that's spitting out of the mouth. So dirty, something like that. And not only that, that's more Tausug's Bajau consideration. The Bajau also, because of their cultural practice, they reserve a traditional ritual, that of consulting their ancestors. They do the so-called ombo. They have special rites. I wanted to share this, but never given a chance to see. But there are reports of this in some journals, how the consultation with the deceased ancestors are done by the Bajau. Of course, this is not done by Muslims. So other differences between the Bajau and the other Muslim Filipino groups are worth considering. Well, I asked them if they go to the main mosque in Manila. They said they don't. That's why they reserve their own small mosque in the neighborhood. They don't. But they bury their dead in the reserved cemetery in one other community, Muslim community founded by Mr. Marcos much earlier on. So they do some, they practice some of the rites. They do the salah, but you cannot expect that all of them do as the other Muslims do.
Okay, we have, yeah, time is up. I think, anyway, I think, as a moderator, I think I would like to also add a few words regarding Islam. Islam is actually a religion of knowledge, because I think the practice of Islam is quite knowledge. How much, I think when we were Muslim, but 50 years ago, I think the interaction of doing the higher things is still there. But now I think people have been knowledgeable and they benefit from the environment. So I think, I think we can appreciate both speakers by giving our hands with the applause. Thank you very much.
So I continue my presentation. Initially, I thought I will present in Chinese, Mandarin. However, I was told that there are a lot of English speakers here, so I rushed back to my hotel room in this morning, spent 3 hours to make this slide. I hope we have no mistake or any mistake. Please forgive me because time is too constrained. Okay. The Malay began to profess Islam as early as 12th century. Okay, so the founder of Malacca Kingdom, this is the man of Malacca Kingdom, converted to Islam and changed his name title as Sultan. The Malacca Digest or Law of Malacca, which was widely used in the Malacca studies, sought many Sharia elements which has proven that Islamic law was widely practiced in the Malay Peninsula since 15th century. So we have known that 500 years ago the Malays is by Islamites, then the Islamic law and Islamic regulation has been practiced widely since 500 years ago before the colonization period. So on the down of the British colonization periods, the Malay Peninsula was ruled by several Malay Islamic kingdoms. All the kingdom was preserved by the British administration as the symbol of Malay identity or regional autonomy under the spell of British Empire. The occupation, however, the occupation and development of 3 major trading ports along Malacca Strait, namely Penang, northern side of the strait, Singapore, Southern, Malacca, and the Median, in which the name of street settlement had given in 1824 attract an unprecedented wave of Chinese immigrants, as such, as well as Indian immigrant from India. As such, a multiracial society has emerged in those colonies during this 19th centuries. As a result, the demography of Malaysians has changed to a multi-ethnic and multicultural society since the early 20th century, as shown in the following table. Sorry. So the following table is show all the ethnic compositions from 1911 to 2010. At the above table you cannot feel anything, but the table below you can feel that. You can acknowledge that actually before the independence 1957, the Malay has become minorities in Malaya, in the Peninsular Malay at least. So other ethnic has surpassed the numbers of Malays in terms of the percentage since 1947. But after that, the Malay, the percentage of Malay has grown gradually until 2010, which is the last population census being conducted. The next will be 2020. The Malays consist of 54% of the whole population, and other aborigines 12%. There's been native and the Malay combined together. They have already 67% of the whole population, which is the highest in the last 100 years. The Chinese population percentage of the Chinese has dropped from 100 years ago, 29% to 2010, 24%. Actually, it's even lower than in last year, which is only 22.something%. So the Chinese percentage population will expect to be dropped further until 15 or 40% in maybe 2050. So we can expect that Malaysia, the country, will be more Malayanized, more Islamized because of the dropping of other ethnics or others religious group. As well, Indian, they remain 77% from 1991. This paper didn't show in my articles because my articles too long. This is for your understanding of our current development of our population in our country. So, as a result, at the dawn of the independence, we know our Malaysia became independence in 1957. During the time of the independence, the Malay consists of 49.8%. Non-Malay, 50.2%. At the time of formation of our Malaya, we get independence at that moment. And currently, the Malay and other native consist of 67% of the whole population, which exceeds the two-thirds of the whole population, and will be growing even larger in the next decade or next few decades, until maybe 80% in 2050. So that's been that the population has changed rapidly since our independence in 1957. And in the last census of our religious group, Islam, which is professed by our Malay group, consists of 61% of the whole population, and others, and shown in the table. And as we know, actually Malay is only one of the largest native in our country. In our country, according to our statistics department, officially we have this kind of all the ethnics. Within the native, we have over 20 names of the natives. Mostly occur in Sabah and Sarawak, East Malaysia. For Chinese, we also have a lot of sub-ethnic groups like Hokkien, Can, Cantonese, Teochew, Hainan, Dongsai, Fokchu, Henhua, Hokja, and others. India, we also have some sub-ethnic within the Indian group, although they only consist of 7% of the whole population, including Tamil, Malayali, Sikhs, Telugu, Tamil, Sinhala, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and others. This is the officially category of our Malaysia ethnics. So since the establishment of the Royal Charter of Justice 1807 in Penang, the British administration has introduced the British common law to replace all the existing law in Malay Sultanate, including Sharia law. So Sharia law has stopped to exist after the British colonization began. They used the British common law to replace the existing Sharia law. So since 19th century, law related to public affairs, civil matters, or criminal matters were fall under British common law jurisdictions, whereas the Malay custom law or Sharia law has gradually confined to personal matters, such as family matters or matters related to Malay traditional custom. However, even the context of Malay or Muslim personal law was still designed and defined by British administration. For example, the so-called Mohammedan Marriages Ordinance of 1880s, which enacted in federal Malay state to regulate the procedure of Malay marriages of faith, which allowed the Malay can marry for wife. The Mohammedan Amendment 1904 was introduced to control several personal matters related to religious rituals and customs like drinking, adultery, blasphemy on Islamic teachings, etc. Apart from this, most of the affairs related to public matters fall under the jurisdiction of civil law, which is British common law. There was no independent Islamic court in Malaysia during British colonial period. As a result, although Malay and Muslim is the largest community prior to the independence in 1957, different parties have argued the suitabilities of making Islam as a nation's official religion during the drafting process of constitutions. Why? Because Malaysia consists of multi-ethnic and multi-religious group during the time of the independence. So the drafting of the constitution was highly influenced by alliance parties, which consist of three parties, represent three major ethnic groups at the time: United Malay National Organization, Malayan Chinese Association, and Malayan Indian Congress. After the compromise and agreement was made between foreign legal experts and political leaders from major ethnic groups, Islam is finally enacted as official religion under the condition that religious freedom is guaranteed in the constitutions. So this is the official paper of independence, which presented by our alliance, our drafter of the constitutions, which guarantee that the religions of Malaya shall be Islam. The observance of these principles shall not impose any disability on non-Muslim national professing and practicing other religions, and shall not imply that the state is not a secular state. There has been included in the proposal federal constitution a declaration that Islam is the religion of the federation. There will in no way affect the present position of the federation as a secular state. Mentioned is constitutional proposal white paper tabled by the alliance governments, which consist of three major parties represent three ethnic groups. So, as far as we concerned, at that moment, at that time, Islam become the official of the religion of Malaysia. Is come by the precondition that the Malaysia should be secular state. This is the common understanding of that moment. So, if we refer to Malayan Proclamation of Independence, this is the original form. The purpose of the Federal Constitution as well as our Federation of Malaysia should safeguard the right and prerogative of Their Highness, the ruler, and the fundamental rights and liberties of the people, and provide for the peaceful and orderly advancement of the persekutuan Tanah Melayu. It's been the Federation of Malaya state as a constitutional monarchy based on parliamentary democracy. So the federation shall be forever a sovereign, democratic, and independent state founded upon the principle of liberty and justice, and ever seeking the welfare and happiness of the people and the maintenance of a just peace among all nations. They have no mention the Islam or the privilege of Islam in the proclamation of the independence. So, upon the independence, our first Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman, which happened to be our university name, I would like to make it clear that this country is not an Islamic State, and it is generally understood we merely provide that Islam shall be official religion of state. In 1962, he made the same guarantees again. And our third Prime Minister, Hussein Wan, also, this is a newspaper clip, also mentioned Malaysia should not be an Islamic state. This is the former first 3 Prime Ministers from Tunku Abdul Rahman first, second, Tun Abdul Razak, and the third Prime Minister, Hussein Wan. They all guarantee that Malaysia will not become an Islamic state. But this situation has changed until the Mahathir Mohamad come to power. This also 1963, Sabah and Sarawak joined Malaysia, also under the precondition that Malaysia shall be a secular state. One of the conditions for letting Sabah and Sarawak to join the West Malaysia to form a new federation of Malaysia is the religion of Islam shall be only for official use for the rituals, but not signify Malaysia as an Islamic state. Malaysia still remain the structure and system of the secular. Okay, so the Sabah and Sarawak, the politician there, the judge there, they're still preserving the right that Malaysia as a secular state. So, however, if we look upon the constitutions, what position of Islam have in our constitution? This is the original form of our original constitutions, and is still preserved until now. For Article 3, as mentioned by Professor Kasani, our Islam is the religion of federation, but other religions may be practiced in peace and harmony. So for Article 11.4, the state law and in respect of the federal territory of Kuala Lumpur, federal law may control and restrict the propagation of any religious doctrine or belief among persons professing the religion Islam. This cause actually is been enacted with acts during the Mahathir regime, Mahathir era. I think after maybe after 1981, our Muslim cannot be if you are father from some other religion, you cannot promote your religions to Muslim. It's against the law in our country. And another one is, every religious group have the right to establish and maintain institution. However, but it shall be lawful for the federation or a state to establish or maintain or assist in establishing or maintaining Islamic institution or provide or assist in providing instruction in the religion of Islam. So, this means that the Islamic education can be sponsored by government. The government can use the tax fund collect from public and sponsor the Islamic institution, including Islamic education, Islamic school or other institutions. Now, other religions have no this privilege. So, very strangely, in Article 160, Malay means a person who professes the religion of Islam, habitually speak the Malay language, conform to Malay custom. This is the 3 preconditions to become Malay. So in Malaysia, if a Malay leave Islam, he will no longer a Malay. Because this is already mentioned in our constitution, the highest law, the supreme law of our country mentioned Malay should be Muslim. If you are not Muslim, sorry, you are not Malay in our country. So this kind of clause is very abnormal, normal in the other country. So Sharia court are the court created by state assembly to administer certain Islamic law. The constitution says Sharia court can only have jurisdiction over person professing the religion of Islam, and in respect only of certain specific matters of Islamic law listed in the constitution. So our constitution also set a lot of items and issues that can be regulated, that can be controlled or fall under the jurisdiction of Islamic court. So this is all the matters. Malay custom, mosque, succession of Testament, and a lot of religious matters. But mostly all these matters confined to family matters or personal matters that has no related to public affair. I mean public affair, if you steal a car, if you burn a house, if you kill somebody, this is all not fall under Islamic jurisdictions. However, we Malaysian, we have certain parties, Islamic fundamental parties, that try to enhance the power of Islamic court or the Islamic law. They want to make the Malaysia as a fully implementation of Islamic law. But however, during 1960, we have very different environments. If we can find to the website, during 1960, and you can also find in the National Archive of our Malaysia, even our Malay newspaper, we have the advertisement of beer. Kini stop baik untuk kita, something like that. I found it, actually I can't believe, but I really go to the National Archive and delve into the Utusan of Malaysia, the very Malay newspaper. They have this kind of advertisement in page 4. And also, during in 1960, even we have a Miss Malaysia or Miss Malaysia to participate the worldwide beauty contest. And even a factory of the alcohol being launched by our second Prime Minister, Tun Abdul Razak. This is the proof that during 1960, shortly after independence, our Malay society or our country is quite circular in the form. If you watch the old movie, the black and white movie, a lot like pyramid movie for the Malay, a lot of people they live very freely. They even can drink alcohol, can make some gambling, something like that in the movie. But now this kind of movie will not be allowed in our current Malays.
Dr. Chin, can you finish in 2 minutes?
Oh, okay, I only using half. Okay, the Islamicization of legal institutions during Mahathir first administration. Okay, 3 minutes. So during Mahathir administrations, there was major change in our Islamic legal institutions. First, I only managed to point 2 of them, actually many, but these 2 have a lot of influence. The enactments of the independence and position of Islamic court. In 1988, a new clause amended into our constitution, Article 121, that state the court of the Islamic court, the federal court, have no jurisdiction in respect of any matter within the jurisdiction of Sharia court. So the effect is, if 2 Muslims have a problem involving their personal law, the matter will fall within the jurisdiction of Sharia court. The civil court shall not interfere when the one parties come to the civil court after losing a case in Sharia court. Also, the civil court can no longer interfere in Sharia court. So any verdicts, any judgment of Sharia court cannot be challenged by other court. See 1988. Second, raise the limit of Sharia court punishment. In 1984, the maximum sentence of Sharia court was raised rapidly from 6 months of jail term or a fine of 1,000 Malaysian ringgit to 3 years of imprisonment, 5,000 of Malaysian ringgit, or 6 strokes of caning, or a combination of the 3 under the Amendment of Sharia Court Criminal Jurisdiction Act 1964. 1965. This is amended in 1984. So the result is more harsh punishment to Muslim society were introduced in Sharia court since 1990s. Take example of Act 559, Sharia Criminal Offence, Federal Territory, 1997. So this is all the crime or offence which will receive the higher maximum punishment. Take example, forced doctrine. If you teach a forced doctrine of Islam, the highest will be combination 5,000, 6 strokes of caning, or 3 years of imprisonment. Forced crime. Forced crime is a mean that you crime you are the perfect, so you will be fined. For other, male homosexual, female homosexual will have the higher punishment. 5,000 6-stroke caning or 3 years of imprisonment. This is in Kuala Lumpur, Islamic court, the highest maximum degree of punishment. However, this is not usually happen, not normal. Okay, usually the punishment will be lighter. Okay, so okay, some of the impact. More regulation on. Okay, this is the last. Okay, actually we have 10 pages behind. Okay, last. More regulation on Muslim daily life. More rate for religious department officer was begin routine from day to night. Hotel, nightclub, restaurant. You stay in hotel in Malaysia, maybe someone will rate to check if whether you are Muslim or not Muslim. And you are Muslim, and you caught female and male together in a room, you will be commit a crime if you are not married. Okay. Strictly regulate on the use of Islamic terms such as Allah. In 1984, the Ministry of Internet Affairs banned the use of Allah to refer to God in non-Muslim publication. So, some extreme measures also have caused some our society unrest, some resentment from the non-Muslim society because they have some extreme measure of the officer or extreme thinker. They try to make a separation between Muslim and non-Muslim. This is the laundry shop who permitted the non-Muslim to go in to become laundry. Even the school, they have the class, the cup for non-Muslim and Muslim segregation. You cannot use a cup for Muslim if you are non-Muslim. So this kind of measure is very extreme and widely planned by our government and make some resentment in our non-Muslim society. However, I think in the future the new government will take care of this. Maybe this kind of unrest will be solved up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for Dr. Lee's presentation. I think we have understand, the totally opposite assessment of the Malaysia Islamization, particularly on the legal institutions and its impact. So I fully comprehend the paper, and the paper, to be honest, is well written. But this is a longer paper, and I also suggest those who are interested in knowing more about Malaysian social, religious, and political development may find it and read it. And I think there are a lot of evidence. This for sure. And you have really done a very detailed research. And the references are very informative, very convincing to some extent. But one of the major drawbacks that I think is that, like the very first paper, it seems to me you have your own emotion, your own judgment. Because, in a sense, I'm lucky to read two different papers. One is very, very positive, and another is so negative. So it's made me. But we all hope, for the new leader to overcome all the difficulties. Okay. So I think maybe the only positive feedback or suggestion that I would like to give you is that, it seems to me you are not really theorized your argument because simply you are putting a lot of references and your own judgment. But I know the judgment, it could be, it's testable, it's debatable, but most of them are founded. Okay? But again, if you are really presenting a paper that could further our theoretical discussions, then we could understand, what exactly the factors that drive the development, social, political, and religious development in Malaysian context? What are their implications for any other like-minded regions? So I guess this is, you have done a very good job, but in theoretically speaking, then you could further that kind of point. Okay, so I think even though we have 5:30, okay, so we have a few minutes left. So I think I want to give the lady, the female student to talk. Okay, if we have more time, we'll let you go. Okay, maybe you can use.
Hello, I'm a Malaysian student in executive history. So my question is referred to Professor Ghazali and Professor Chi. I still remember the time when Dr. Mahathir appointed as Prime Minister again. The conference, he said, don't forget I am a dictator. Don't forget I am a dictator. Yes. So my question is, how are we going to form a new Malaysia, which is Malaysians Malaysia? And because after the general election voting, so we have seen so many kata political frauds. They jump in, to jump the political party just to sorry because I'm a little busy. Yeah, just to ensure their advantage won't be effect. So by this case, if the person who elected by the people that cannot hold on the principle, how can we reform a new Malaysia? Yeah, this is my question.
I think both of you could make some comments. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to add some of the information regarding the constitution now. With this declaration between Mahathir and Anwar, it's a new party inspiration. And again, I think being helped by methods by his professionals. With regard to the provision of constitution that Islam is a state religion in Article 3, but other religion can be practiced. So there is a move now for the new government to say that Islam is a state religion, so that other religion can be practiced. What does it mean? It means that Islamic teaching does condone, does encourage other religion to be practiced. We not just drop on the butt. Just therefore Islam is state, therefore other religion can be practiced. And this is the way how I think we understand Islam now, because this Islam, unlike before, of course, in any society we have degrees of the so-called fundamental degrees of the hard stand, because just moderate, there's less moderate, that kind of student that I think we are now very available under the new government. Of course, and then this your question regarding Mahathir. You know that he is now 90-year-old person. When he took, and we see that I'm dictator, way back in 20 years back, 20 years ago. Okay? Of course, at that time, because he was the prime minister and he was the one who Anwar was jail. Now he said, I have realized my mistake before. Please forgive me. It's now 93 years old. No? It's not, his age is 93 now. And to me, what I understand from him, it comes from his sincere heart. And being an old man, when he said his country is just any day that I'm going to the grave. I think he has expressed his repentance, and he has admitted his wrong way before. Now I'm a new person with new personality with a new Malaysia. With a new Malaysia is the beginning of the new Malaysia.
So I believe that he's sincere. I believe he's sincere.
We awareness that we aware that they have a strong awareness of Islam value in our Malay society compared to 1960, and we respect the view of Malay community to have further Islamizations. However, if the practice and the implementation of certain Islamic value of Islamic law, I think as a non-Muslim, as a minority in our country, we concerned about our feelings and our right has to be respected too. Because as a minority, we are non-Muslim. But however, I hope the new government or the official or the whatever authorities can respect other people thinking or non-Muslim feelings while enforce the Islamic regulations. But we respect the enforcement. However, we know the fact that the Malaysia become more and more Islamized and more Muslim dominated, as we showed at the table. So Malaysia is no longer a Muslim minority or whatever, but in the near future, Muslim will very dominated in case of the population of percentage. So we will acknowledge the fact that the Islamization is the way of no returns. If we will go further. However, I do hope the Islamization will go further for the equal treatment of the justice, of the anti-corruption, of the wealth management, rather than based on the form of riches only. Thank you.
I forget again, thank you very much. One incident that I think just before the new government school, there was a case that the Islamic Party brought the Parliament to enforce the law of RU 335. This to increase the punishment for the Islamic law. But this has been turned down by this group, the new party. Said no way that we can, because we are now stressing on how would Islam can be practiced, but all the value system, not really the value system. For example, integrity, honesty, no corruption, justice for all. This is the new government now. So to me, this is I think hope, giving us hope to all religious, all the race, all the racial, multiracial society.
Yes, because it's very interesting, because from his side, there is a Malay Muslim, look at the other side, was possibly the negative I'm going to say. That actually, Sharia law is meant for the Muslim, not the non-Muslim. Non-Muslim is not affected at all. When we do the adultery, the non-Muslim do the adultery, they won't be caught. No. It's only for a thing like me. I've done something wrong where I have to face it. That kind of thing. And it's true. It's for Muslims, not for non-Muslim. Non-Muslim is not affected at all. Isn't it true, dear? That's it.
Yes.
I look at that angle, Sorry.
Okay. I guess we've done a very good job. And I know time is always short. And we have a lot more discussion that could be conducted after our session. So, Levi, organizer, want to say something?
Well, actually, this party focused on one point. The religious minority in the Muslim state, in this country. Actually, if you go back to the history, it's written clearly in the Sharia law. So, a special status for the dhimma, so it's clear. So please look at the history, the procedure of Islamization. And for Islam, the original meaning is peace. That's all.
All right, very good. I would like to thank our three great presenters who have done a very good job. So please join me to thank them.
He's the chair of the Institute of Vietnamese History from Vietnam. And the second presenter is Professor Yan Zhihong from Jinan University. And the third one is Dr. Lee Yuisen. Right now he's postdoctor in, he's doing postdoc research. Okay. And the first paper we presented in Vietnamese and with English abstract here. And also we have a interpreter. Here we have prepared the interpreter. So if you need translation, we can have some translation for you when you have some questions after the presentation. Okay. Okay. Right now we will get started. From Vietnam first, we will invite Professor Đinh Quang Hải to present this paper right now. Okay. And each one will have 20 minutes around. 20 minutes to present. Okay.
Vâng, thưa các quý vị tham dự, tôi xin trình bày một cái vấn đề rất quan trọng trong lịch sử Việt Nam hiện đại, đó là vấn đề di cư của hai miền Nam Bắc Việt Nam sau hiệp định Geneva năm 1954. Đây là một trong những cái nội dung rất là quan trọng của lịch sử Việt Nam hiện đại. Nó được diễn ra sau khi hiệp định Geneva ký kết ngày 21 tháng 7 năm 1954. Như chúng ta đã biết là thế giới vào cuối năm 1953-1954 thì có cái thay đổi, các nước Anh, Pháp, Mỹ và Liên Xô đã có cái xu hướng hòa hoãn và tìm đến cái giải pháp để chấm dứt chiến tranh, những cái cuộc xung đột ở Đức, ở Áo cũng như là Triều Tiên, và trong đó có cái việc là chấm dứt cái cuộc xung đột ở Đông Dương. Thì trong cái nội dung cái bài này của tôi cho thời gian không cho phép nên tôi chỉ trình bày rất ngắn gọn hai cái nội dung. Thứ nhất là âm mưu của Mỹ và chính quyền của Ngô Đình Diệm trong cái vấn đề di cư, và thứ hai là cuộc đấu tranh của Việt Nam Dân Chủ Cộng Hòa chống cưỡng bức di cư vào Việt Nam. Thứ nhất là về âm mưu của Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm trong vấn đề di cư. Chúng ta biết là theo hiệp định Geneva quy định chia Việt Nam thành hai miền, miền Nam và miền Bắc, và lấy cái tuyến đường này làm cái ranh giới quân sự tạm thời để sau 2 năm thì sẽ tiến hành tổng tuyển cử, nhân dân đi bầu cử để thống nhất hai miền Nam Bắc Việt Nam. Tuy nhiên là trên thực tế không diễn ra như vậy, bởi vì do Mỹ và chính quyền miền Nam Việt Nam, chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm có hai hiệp định, và trong cái điều thứ 14B của chương 1 của hiệp định Geneva thì quy định là sau khi hiệp định được ký kết và có hiệu lực trong cái thời hạn 300 ngày tập kết thủy quân ấy, thì người dân sống ở vùng bên kia nếu mà có nhu cầu sống ở vùng khác thì chính quyền ở cái nơi đó phải có trách nhiệm giúp đỡ và tạo điều kiện cho người di cư. Và chính vì cái điều 14D như vậy cho nên mới diễn ra cái việc là có cái việc người miền Bắc di cư vào miền Nam và bộ đội cán bộ miền Nam tập kết ra người miền Bắc theo quy định của hiệp định Geneva. Và chính vì lý do đó cho nên có cái sự can thiệp của Mỹ vào và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm trong cái việc tổ chức việc di cư của đồng bào từ miền Bắc vào miền Nam. Ở trong nội dung này tôi chỉ trình bày cái phần nội dung từ miền Bắc, người từ miền Bắc di cư vào miền Nam, còn cái nội dung từ miền Nam tập kết ra ngoài miền Bắc thì tôi sẽ trình bày ở cái nội dung cái lần khác, bởi vì thời gian lần này nó không cho phép. Thì để cái việc tổ chức cái việc người miền Bắc di cư vào miền Nam thì Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm xây dựng một cái kế hoạch, một chiến lược là rất là cụ thể, rất là chi tiết cho cái việc tổ chức những người di cư. Và trước hết là công tác tuyên truyền là nếu đồng bào và đặc biệt là đồng bào Công giáo ở lại thì sẽ bị chính quyền cộng sản áp bức, đè nén mà không có cái sự tạo thuận lợi trong cuộc sống. Còn nếu mà đi vào miền Nam thì sẽ được chính quyền mới ở miền Nam Việt Nam sẽ tạo điều kiện cho cuộc sống. Và cái mục đích mà Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm và vận động cưỡng bức đồng bào miền Nam di cư vào miền Nam, mà trong đó đa số là đồng bào cho là Công giáo đấy là nhằm 3 cái mục đích. Thứ nhất là mục đích về mặt chính trị, tức là để làm sao mà hạ thấp cái uy tín của chính phủ Việt Nam Dân Chủ Cộng Hòa, một chính quyền mới được thành lập sau năm 1945. Cái thứ hai là xuyên tạc cái chính sách tôn giáo, tạo ra một cái dư luận xấu đối với cái chính quyền mới, đối với xã hội mới ở miền Bắc. Và đặc biệt cái mục đích chính trị là xây dựng một cái hệ thống chính trị để tạo cái cơ sở chính trị cho cái chính quyền mới của Ngô Đình Diệm. Nếu mà diễn ra bầu cử thì có một cái lực lượng sẽ tạo cái ủng hộ cho cái số phiếu của chính quyền mới, của chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm. Đấy là về mặt chính trị. Còn về mặt kinh tế thì cái việc di cư như vậy trên thực tế cũng đã thu hút được rất nhiều những người là công chức, những doanh nghiệp và những công nhân kỹ thuật, và kể cả những thường dân từ miền Bắc chuyển vào Việt Nam. Như vậy thì sẽ làm cho cái việc khôi phục sản xuất cũng như là phục hồi kinh tế sau chiến tranh ở miền Bắc Việt Nam sẽ gặp nhiều khó khăn. Đó là lý do về mặt kinh tế. Còn lý do về mặt quân sự thì Mỹ thực hiện cái âm mưu là biến miền Nam thành cái thuộc địa kiểu mới của Mỹ, và chính vì vậy cho nên là sẽ xây dựng một cái đội quân mà đội quân tay sai thân người. Thì để làm như vậy thì loại bỏ những cái người trong cái quân đội của Pháp trước đây mà thay thế bằng những người có cái xu hướng thân nghị sau này. Và chính vì thế cho nên là tạo cái lực lượng mà những người từ miền Bắc di cư vào sẽ bổ sung, đặc biệt là cái đội thanh niên và những người đã tham gia quân đội Pháp trước đây thì sẽ sang là đăng ký vào đội ngũ của quân đội Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. Như vậy là đạt cái mục đích về mặt quân sự. Thì để tổ chức cái việc di cư như vậy thì chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm có thành lập ra cái phủ tổng ủy di cư tị nạn, rồi là thành lập ra cái hội đồng di cư Bắc Việt, và chuyên chỉ lo cái việc tổ chức cho cái người di cư, từ cái việc tuyên truyền, rồi là đe dọa cũng như là cưỡng bức nhân dân miền Bắc vào miền Nam. Thì đấy là những cái hoạt động của những cái tổ chức mà do Diệm dưới đây là tuyên truyền. Cái tổ chức này thì tiến hành những biện pháp như là tuyên truyền xuyên tạc cái chính sách của Đảng, của nhà nước Việt Nam, và đặc biệt là họ lợi dụng vào cái việc sai lầm của Việt Nam Dân Chủ Cộng Hòa trong cái cải cách ruộng đất. Thì cải cách ruộng đất thì nó tạo nên một cái sự xáo trộn rất lớn trong cái xã hội nông thôn, đặc biệt là nông thôn miền Bắc Việt Nam. Và trong cái việc thực hiện cải cách ruộng đất thì cũng có cả cái sai lầm. Thế cho nên là vì chính quyền Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm lợi dụng cái sai lầm đó tuyên truyền kích động đồng bào, nhất là đồng bào Công giáo. Cái việc Pháp và Mỹ tổ chức cho đồng bào di cư vào miền Nam ấy, thì thứ nhất là có sự hỗ trợ rất lớn, kể cả về tiền của, kinh phí, về tàu vận chuyển người, và kể cả lực lượng chuyên gia trong cái việc tuyên truyền kích động đồng bào miền Bắc di cư. Và theo như tính toán ấy, thì cứ mỗi một cái người di cư từ miền Bắc vào miền Nam thì Mỹ chi phí 89 đô. Đấy là chưa kể là sau khi họ đã vào miền Nam rồi thì họ phải chi phí thêm được vài cái khoản chi phí khác của cuộc sống. Nhưng mà một người vào là chi phí hết 89 đô. Và Mỹ và Anh đã sử dụng 30 chiếc tàu để chuyên chở những người miền Bắc di cư vào Việt Nam. Còn Pháp ấy, thì có móc nối với các tổ chức tôn giáo là chở đồng bào bằng những cái thuyền nhỏ, những cái bè này ra tàu hải quân Pháp sẽ vớt lên, và tàu hải quân Pháp sẽ trực tiếp ra cái tàu Mỹ đậu ở thành khơi và chuyển đưa đồng bào di cư vào miền Nam. Thì theo con số tính toán ấy thì tài liệu cho biết là các con số chính xác có bao nhiêu người di cư thì có thể nói là cũng chưa có con số chính xác cụ thể, bởi vì tôi dẫn ra đến 3 cái số liệu khác nhau. Nhưng mà có cái nói chung thì mọi người đều thống nhất cái quan điểm là có khoảng gần 1 triệu người miền Bắc di cư vào Việt Nam. Thì trong đó thì đồng bào Công giáo chiếm 73%, đồng bào theo Phật giáo thì chiếm 23,5%, còn đạo Tin lành là 0,2%, và ngoài ra theo một số tôn giáo khác. Như vậy là trong số gần 1 triệu người miền Bắc di cư vào Việt Nam thì có khoảng độ 700 cho đến 800 nghìn người là người theo đạo Công giáo. Như vậy là cái lực lượng chủ yếu là những người theo đạo Công giáo thì cái số lượng lớn nhất. Thì cũng theo tài liệu của Tổ tổng ủy di cư huyện Ngô Đình Diệm thì con số đó là 928.152 người. Như vậy là cũng khoảng gần 1 triệu người. Và trong đó có hơn 700.000 người là công dân và 88.000 người là ngư dân, 133.000 là công chức, sinh viên và thương gia. Thì cái đội ngũ công chức, đội ngũ sinh viên và thương gia là một cái lực lượng hết sức quan trọng khi mà vào miền Nam. Họ tạo những cái cơ sở về mặt kinh tế, về mặt xã hội rất quan trọng cho cái chính quyền của Ngô Đình Diệm. Và như vậy là đối với cái đội ngũ này cũng đã khi mà chuyển vào miền Nam thì ở miền Bắc cũng là một cái khó khăn trong cái việc khôi phục sản xuất cũng như là hồi phục cái nền kinh tế sau khi chiến tranh. Thì trong số gần 1 triệu người di cư từ miền Bắc vào miền Nam thì theo quy định là có 300 ngày hai bên sẽ phải hoàn thành cái việc tập kết chuyển quân. Thế do cái thời hạn cái việc di cư rất là phức tạp cho nên là phải kéo dài thời hạn. Lúc đầu thì dự định là từ ngày 19 tháng 5 năm 1955 thì kết thúc, nhưng thực ra phải đến ngày 19 tháng 8 năm 1955 thì mới kết thúc cái việc di cư cũng như là tập kết chuyển quân giữa hai miền. Thì trong cái số gần 1 triệu người từ miền Bắc di cư vào thì sau ngoài những cái lực lượng mà đi chủ yếu bằng máy bay, bằng tàu thủy thì còn có một lực lượng khác là đi theo đường bộ vượt qua giới tuyến, tức là họ từ miền Bắc và họ vào Vĩnh Linh, sau đó vượt qua cái giới tuyến vĩ tuyến 17 để vào miền Nam. Thì cái số lượng đó là theo những con số tính toán của tiến sĩ Hoàng Thị Hiếu là có khoảng 200.000 người trong cái thời gian 300 ngày. Ngoài cái số chính thức đi bằng đường thủy và đường hàng không thì còn có khoảng 200.000 người đi theo đường bộ vượt qua cái vĩ tuyến 17 vào trong miền Nam. Thì phải nói là cái nhìn lại chính sách di cư thì chúng ta thấy là nó có một số cái điểm ở đây. Thứ nhất là cái chính sách di cư thì nó không có gì là mới, bởi vì trong lịch sử đã diễn ra nhiều lần. Các cái cuộc di cư trước đây thì do lý do kinh tế, lý do ý thức về mặt dân tộc. Thế tuy nhiên là cái đợt di cư lần này của Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm tạo ra thì nó không xuất phát từ cái mục đích, cái nguyện vọng của người dân, mà lồng vào đó là cái việc tuyên truyền cái chính trị và cái việc quân sự, kinh tế, xã hội theo mục tiêu của Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm. Và đặc biệt trong đó thì có dựa vào cái niềm tin tôn giáo, bởi vì khi họ tuyên truyền cho cái việc ra đi như vậy thì họ cũng nói là Chúa, Đức Mẹ và Chúa Giêsu đã vào Nam, cho nên là các con chiên theo vào Nam chứ không thể tại miền Bắc. Thì cái việc tuyên truyền như vậy cũng đã gây một cái tâm lý trong cái số giáo dân, có buộc giáo dân là đi theo vào trong miền Nam. Cái thứ hai là cái quy mô của cái di cư này thì nó rất là rộng, tức là nó diễn ra trên toàn miền Bắc, từ nông thôn cho đến thành thị và từ đồng bằng cho đến miền núi, đặc biệt cả cái vùng ven biển là những vùng có đông đồng bào Công giáo sinh sống, ví dụ như là Kim Sơn ở Ninh Bình, Kim Sơn Phát Diệm, hay là ở những cái địa phương mà có đông đồng bào Công giáo sinh sống. Như vậy là diễn ra khắp tất cả miền Bắc, và đối với kể cả người dân tộc cũng như là người Kinh và các cái dân tộc khác ở miền Bắc đều tham gia vào cái cuộc di cư này. Cho nên đây phải nói là một cuộc di cư lớn nhất trong cái lịch sử hiện đại, mà với số lượng người 1 triệu người từ miền Bắc di cư vào miền Nam. Thế còn cái chiều ngược lại, nếu mà trong một nghiên cứu khác chúng tôi đề cập đến, tức là có khoảng độ 500-600.000 cán bộ bộ đội và chiến sĩ là người của gọi là Việt Nam Cộng Hòa, Việt Nam Dân Chủ Cộng Hòa từ miền Nam là tập kết ra vào miền Bắc. Nên như vậy là nó tạo thành một cái sự di chuyển rất lớn giữa miền Nam và miền Bắc qua cái dân tuyến 17, vị tuyến 17. Thế thì cái nội dung thứ hai là cái đấu tranh để chống lại cái cuộc chính sách di cư của Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm. Thì trong này có chỉ nêu lên một số cái điều. Thứ nhất là Đảng và Nhà nước Việt Nam yêu cầu các tổ chức, các cơ quan đoàn thể cũng như là nhân dân phải nhận rõ được cái âm mưu, cái thủ đoạn của Mỹ và chính quyền Ngô Đình Diệm và tiến hành những cái biện pháp. Thứ nhất là tuyên truyền để đồng bào yên tâm ở lại miền Bắc, tiếp tục cuộc sống dưới sự lãnh đạo của Đảng, nhà nước. Cái thứ hai là trên thực tế thì cái cuộc di cư này diễn ra trên quy mô rộng như tôi vừa nói và nó rất phức tạp. Thế vì vậy là yêu cầu huy động tất cả các cơ quan đoàn thể, nhân dân, đặc biệt là lực lượng vũ trang phải tham gia vào việc tuyên truyền động viên nhân dân ở lại. Thì có những cái chỉ thị, những cái nghị quyết rất là cụ thể và đi tuyên truyền vận động đến từng thôn xóm, từng địa phương để vận động nhân dân ở lại.
và đặc biệt là những cái người ra đi như vậy thì trong anh em trong họ hàng cũng tuyên truyền nhau, động viên nhau là không nên mắc mưu của Mỹ và chính quyền thực hiện để di cư vào Nam ở lại Việt Nam. Thì phải nói là cái công tác tuyên truyền vận động rất là tích cực như vậy thì cũng đã đem lại cái kết quả nhất định. Thì trong cái số ra đi thì cũng có nhiều người đã xuống đến Hải Phòng để chuẩn bị ra đi thì lại quay trở lại quê hương, hoặc là có những người khi quay trở lại thì lại tiếp tục tuyên truyền vận động những cái người mà đang có ý định chuẩn bị ra đi thì yên tâm ở lại làm ăn. Thì tôi nói là cái kết quả tuyên truyền vận động rất là hiệu quả, và đặc biệt là những tổ chức xuống tận thôn xã như vậy động viên hết sức kịp thời và tạo những cái điều kiện nhất định để cho bà con ở lại yên tâm, thì cái này đã đưa được những kết quả nhất định. Tuy nhiên thì phải nói là đây là một cái cuộc đấu tranh hết sức phức tạp gay go, bởi vì là những người mà trước đây làm việc cho Pháp, rồi những người là đồng bào Công giáo, hoặc là những doanh nghiệp, và trong số đó cũng rất nhiều địa chủ từ miền Bắc cũng vẫn tiếp tục cái việc ra đi. Vì vậy Đảng và Nhà nước Việt Nam cũng phải tổng kết là cái cuộc ra đi này, cái cuộc di cư này, chống di cư này có đạt được cái kết quả nhất định. Tuy nhiên phải nói là chúng ta chưa đạt được những cái mục tiêu đề ra, tức là vẫn để cho một số lượng rất lớn người di cư, và quả thực là cái việc di cư lớn như vậy, xáo trộn như vậy thì nó cũng làm cho miền Bắc gặp phải những cái khó khăn nhất định trong cái giai đoạn đầu, tức là sau khi hòa bình trở lại năm 1954. Bởi vì sau đó thì ở miền Nam thì Mỹ và chính quyền Sài Gòn phá hoại hiệp định Geneva và tiến hành cái việc xâm lược miền Nam Việt Nam. Còn ở miền Bắc thì phải tiến hành cái việc khôi phục, phục hồi phát triển kinh tế, cho nên gặp rất nhiều khó khăn khi mà một cái lực lượng lớn người từ miền Bắc ra đi vào miền Nam như vậy. Và họ ra đi thì họ là những người thường là những người có trình độ và những người là có điều kiện kinh tế, tức là gia đình khá giả, và những cái doanh nhân, những người làm ăn thì họ đi hết ở Việt Nam. Thì đấy là một cái phải nói là tổng kết lại, nhìn lại thì cái cuộc đấu tranh này cũng đạt được kết quả bước đầu, nhưng phải nói là cũng hết sức là khó khăn và cam go. Thì trong cái nội dung này nó còn rất nhiều những vấn đề cụ thể, vì thời gian chúng tôi không thể có điều kiện trình bày hết. Ở đây thì có một số cái tài liệu lưu trữ liên quan đến vấn đề di cư. Thứ hai là một số cái hình ảnh về những người miền Bắc di cư vào Việt Nam theo hiệp định Geneva năm 1954. Xin cảm ơn.
Xin cảm ơn. Thank you very much. Có lời giải đáp.我稍微摘要一下的内容我用中文摘要一下就是在1954年呢，就是南北越那时候有日内瓦协议两边停战，然后里面的内容有一条就是说双边的军队回去，然后两边的人民可以依据他们自由意愿可以互相迁徙，在300天之内就是在日内瓦生效的300日之内，如果你南部的想去北部，北部的人想去南部依照他们的自由意愿会去迁徙的那时候南部的政权就是吴廷琰的政权呢，他就抛出一个政策，就是就是广招北部的北越的人民，号召他们南迁到南部去那特别是其中很大部分是天主教徒教会的信徒那这个政策呢，对北方造成了一定的影响大概有100万人就从北部移到南部去。所以各位如果现在有接到南部呢，胡志明市很多呢，他们都是当时候移民到南部去的人口那内容大概都在谈这些好，那我们就开放几个问题我们还有几分钟开放几个问题we open up for questions. Any question or comments related to this paper? 有没有什么问题？我们开放。我们有翻译所以你们不用越南也没有关系你要讲台语、讲华语都可以我们请这个阮氏清和我们现在成大历史系博士候选人他会帮忙翻译有没有？都没有有问题。好，谢谢老师。
他说， 然后说这个是美国跟南越政府的这个阴谋呢。那但是我觉得100万人里面应该有些是那个自愿的，也就是说，讲阴谋应该没办法解释所有事情。那100万人也不会说所有人都是那受骗，那这样可以懂意思吗？所以我想说，那个金老师，会不会这么说100万人里面应该有一部分是那个自愿？那假设自愿的话，那他们为什么要搬到那个南越？南越有什么吸引力可以让这些志愿者到那边去？
还有没有问题？
Vừa nãy thầy hỏi là khi thầy Hải nói cái câu là cái này là do âm mưu của Mỹ và của chính quyền vô điều kiện thì có lẽ là hơi không đúng, bởi vì trong số gần 1 triệu người thì có thể có những người là họ tự nguyện đi. Và thầy muốn hỏi là tại sao ở trong số gần 1 triệu người này họ đi miền Nam, và ở miền Nam có những cái sức hút thế nào để họ đi?
还有问题，我们就一起回答。
我想请教的是，那个刚才老师有提到，就是说北越的政府，他对这个南越的这些和美国这些政策有采取一些奏报，对他在对美对华的斗争上取得了胜利。因为它里面讲得很快，所以我不太知道他所提到的北越所采取的策略是什么。
还有没有？
Hồi nãy thì giáo sư nói với là trong số những người đã di cư vào Nam thì có một số người thì là dân tộc thiểu số, thì là tôi sẽ hỏi luật sư về cái nếu mà có thông tin nào cụ thể về số người hoặc là tỷ lệ % của dân tộc thiểu số, tức là dân tộc thiểu số hoặc là hay là những người nước ngoài thì trong đó thì chiếm vào bao nhiêu % thì nếu mà có thông tin như thế thì nó sẽ có thể biết được.
他想要问的是，因为刚刚丁老师有提到，在移民的人员有一些是越南的少数民族，所以他想要问那少数民族的那个比例，还有国外人口的比例多少，然后还有没有什么就是正确的数字？
还有没有问题？都没有啊。那我也有一个问题啊，这跟我报告，来谈谈。这是顺着刚才大家的问题啊，就是说，如果因为他刚才发表他有谈到，就是当时一开始北越没有想到南越会出这个怪招了啊，他们一开始没有想到啊，他是后来才发现有这个，所以招架不定了。那如果经过半个世纪回头再来看呢，那依照丁冠堂教授，他如果现在重新去看的话，当时可以采取什么样的积极的策略啊，可以去阻止这样的他认为的南部的这个阴谋，有没有什么方法比较有效的方法啊？
Thật ra vừa hỏi là vừa nãy thầy có nói là bởi vì khi ngay đầu tiên thì chính phủ ở miền Bắc thì không phát hiện được cái âm mưu này, và bây giờ nếu như sau hơn một nửa thế kỷ thì nếu như người miền Bắc phát hiện ra ngay thì họ sẽ có theo giáo sư Hà thì sẽ có nghĩa chính phủ miền Bắc sẽ có cái chính sách như thế nào để giải quyết vấn đề này.
好，那我们现在就请这个丁教授啊来帮忙这个新闻。
Trước hết là xin rất là cảm ơn những cái ý kiến comment như vậy, thì thực ra đây là những cái nội dung mà trong cái báo cáo của tôi cũng đã nói rất là rõ, nhưng mà vì thời gian không có điều kiện trình bày. Với câu hỏi thứ nhất là có phải là âm mưu của Mỹ hay chính quyền muốn đình diệu không? Mà cái số lượng người ra đi đông như vậy, gần 1 triệu người như vậy, trong số đó thì có rất nhiều người là họ tự giác, tự nguyện ra đi chứ không phải là do cưỡng ép. Thì câu hỏi này hoàn toàn là đúng với thực tế. Tôi nói là trong cái báo cáo tôi cũng nói rất rõ, thực ra
nó xuất phát từ cái âm mưu của Mỹ và chính quyền vô đình diệm trong cái việc phá hoại hiệp định Geneva, làm khó khăn cho miền Bắc, cho nên họ thành lập ra những cái phủ tổng ủy di cư hay là những cái tổ chức mà chuyên lo cái việc di cư với cái sự hậu thuẫn rất lớn của Mỹ và của Pháp, trong đó có cả một phần cái sự giúp đỡ của Anh trong cái việc cung cấp tàu chiến cho cái việc di cư. Thì ở đây trong cái số mà gần 1 triệu người thì đúng thật là có nhiều người là họ tự nguyện ra đi. Họ tự nguyện ra đi bởi những lý do như thế này. Thứ nhất là những người đó là họ làm việc trong chính quyền cũ. Và cái thứ hai đó là những doanh nhân, những nhà tư sản và những nhà địa chủ, là những người có tài sản và họ bị chính quyền vô đình diệm tuyên truyền, và nếu mà ở lại, tức là trong này tôi không câu trích ấy, tức là nếu ở lại Bắc Việt thì sẽ làm nô lệ cho chính thể độc tài cộng sản, và nếu mà đi miền Nam thì sẽ được sự giúp đỡ thiết thực. Đấy là cái thứ nhất. Cái thứ hai là họ
我先翻译一下，丁老师刚刚谢谢大家提供这么多的问题那个回馈。那他先回答第一个问题，就是说，为什么要讲这是美国的那个阴谋？它阴谋其实不是在于那个让人过去从北到南，而是阴谋是要破坏那个日内瓦协定的那个精神。因为他要让这个就是越南统一的路程是变得更难，然后在将近100万的人里面，有很多人是自愿，是没有错，这个是没有错，因为在他的文章里面也有提到这个问题，但是因为时间太快，所以可能没有办法讲得清楚。那里面这些比较属于那个自愿去移民的人是谁？第一个就是那些。是法国人，就是之前曾经帮他们做事过的那些人。然后第二个就是一些资本家或地主，这些人他是有财产，所以在北越的那个时候，他可能就是被共产党充公等等。所以吴廷艳就才会告诉他们说，如果你在北越，留在北越，你可能就会变成共产党的那个奴隶。那你到南越，我会给你就是自由、人权的等等的这个诱惑，所以他就会自愿去的。
Đặc biệt là họ lợi dụng vào cái sai lầm của Việt Nam Dân Chủ Cộng Hòa trong cái việc tiến hành cải cách ruộng đất, có thành công nhưng mà cũng có rất nhiều cái sai lầm do cái sự ảnh hưởng của Trung Quốc áp đặt cái việc trong cải cách ruộng đất ở Việt Nam. Vì vậy là những người là địa chủ có nhiều ruộng đất trong cải cách ruộng đất thì là họ bị có 2 cái cuộc thí điểm ở Thanh Hóa và Thái Nguyên, thì họ thấy là địa chủ thì sẽ bị tịch thu ruộng đất, thậm chí có khi còn bị truy tố và bị bắt đi bỏ tù. Thế cho nên họ tuyên truyền vào cái đấy là họ cũng kích động rất nhiều cho cái việc là những cái người có tài sản. Nhưng mà tôi nói là phần lớn những cái người binh lính tham gia vào chính quyền Pháp trước đó và những nhà tư sản địa chủ thì họ bỏ đi vào Nam, và những người đó thì một phần là do tuyên truyền, nhưng mà cái cốt yếu có lẽ cũng chính là do cái sự tự nguyện của họ. Họ thấy là nếu ở lại miền Bắc thì cái việc tài sản của họ liệu có giữ được hay không, hoặc họ có được đảm bảo về mặt nhân thân hay không. Còn đi miền Nam thì lại được hứa hẹn tạo ra rất nhiều cái điều kiện thuận lợi, cho nên là họ cũng tự nguyện ra đi, số lượng đó cũng rất đông. Nhưng cũng không thể không nói là cái âm mưu và cái chính sách của Mỹ và chính quyền vô đình diệm trong cái việc mà tôi phân tích ở đây bằng 3 cái nội dung chính trị, kinh tế và quân sự như vậy, cho nên là tạo thành một cái làn sóng rất lớn số lượng người di cư tìm đến.
除了那个就是刚刚所说的那些自愿的人去，第一个就是为法国人做事的人，第二个是地主。那当时刚好在北越有进行一个土改的政策，那土改的政策就让在北越的那些地主